Hey, what's up, folks? Will back once again. Very happy to be back. And I'm back with a really fine looking UFC pay-per-view here with UFC 216 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. As the main event, we have Tony Ferguson facing off against Kevin Lee for the Interim Lightweight Championship. Such a good fight when you look at it. Demetrious Johnson is the co-main event against Ray Borg. That got rescheduled after falling off UFC 215. And just solid matchups throughout the card, in all honesty. There's some really fine matchmaking from Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard here. And running into this last part of the year, there's a lot of good fights that have been made by those guys as well. So yeah, looking forward to kind of talking some fights about this card. Just want to thank everybody once again for the comments, the likes, subscribing. It's been a big year for me for new subscribers and helping me get out there, so I really appreciate you guys. My new podcast, MMA Huddle's out there, so go give us a follow across all platforms there. You can download us on iTunes and SoundCloud and so on and so on. Get us here on YouTube. So we're going to be speaking more about this card and other cards coming up in the future. So yeah, looking forward to getting into this one. So we're going to start in the flyweight division. We have Matt Schnell against Marco Beltran. A fight I was kind of a little bit back and forward between picking who was going to be the winner here. Marco Beltran, I think he's having a kind of tough cut to 125. I think his frame fits it a little bit, but I think it must be a tough cut for the guy having to make that. Seemed okay last time out in Mexico or Brazil when he fought against Davison Alcantara. It was a weird fight because I know his mother passed away, I think, the week of that fight, so that's crazy, still fighting when that happens. Made the weight, but I just thought Alcantara was the better fighter overall, and just really once Beltran started to slow down, he started to get picked apart, and then he got stopped in that fight on the stool, I think it was, if I remember right there. Matt Schnell, very fragile chin. I think Rob Font, I know he was moving up a division on pretty short notice for that fight there. He got his clock cleaned in that fight and got put to sleep. And then I thought very bad fight IQ in his fight with Hector Sandoval. Sandoval has some power. He thumps, he hits hard. Tried to go in for a takedown there and just ate shots and got put to sleep. Devastatingly, really, to be honest with you there. So Matt Schnell, this is kind of his do or die kind of moment here in the UFC against Beltran. What I like about this is that Schnell has been a flyweight for longer. He's fought at that weight longer, which I like. He's made more of those cuts down to that division. It might be a little bit easier here for Beltran. He's made that cut down to 125, so he knows what to expect. He knows how his body's going to feel. But I just think that Matt Schnell is a little bit of an all-around better fighter. He does have that fragile chin, which kind of scares me a little bit. But I think he has to fight smart. He has to mix up. Don't go in guns blazing, bad defense. Try and fight long, because he is the longer fighter in this one here. If he can do that and just fight smart, I think that's has to be his game plan here. Don't get into a firefight and don't get caught with something big. If he gets caught with something big, he could very much get himself put to sleep in this one. I think I like Matt Schnell a little bit more. Not overly confident, in all honesty, but I think Snell's got enough to win a decision. I think this could be him winning the first two, the first couple of rounds, but I can see it being a little bit sloppy as well. But I like Matt Schnell to win the fight. I like him to win via decision. Moving on to the middleweight division, we have Leites against Brad Tavares. I like Brad Tavares in this one. I think that he really impressed me in that win over Elias Theodorou. Now, I don't think Theodorou, in all honesty, is an overly great fighter, but he is tough, and he's a point fighter, and he knows how to play that game very well. Brad Tavares looked as good as we've ever seen him in the UFC. He put it all together. His strikes were crisp. His takedowns were really good, and his control was really good. Not that he had the takedowns for long, but when he had control, he controlled the fight, and really wherever the fight went, he had the definitive advantage, and I thought that would be the case in that one there. Leites, I mean, he's a guy who's been around a hell of a long time. I think it's been 20th fight in the UFC, so he's been around a long ass time. But I do think he has fallen off a little bit. I think that I went over Sam Alvey last time out. Not really anything to kind of shout from the roof about. But he is a dangerous guy. When he came back into his UFC for his second stint, his hands and his striking were so much better than his first stint in the UFC, which he was predominantly a jiu-jitsu guy, get you down there and submitting you. Came back in for his second phase in the UFC, and he showed a lot of hands, and he's had some fights where he's been a little bit unlucky. I think the Bisping one, I think, was still a little bit unlucky. But I do think he's at that tipping point now where he could fall off and lose a couple of fights, and that'll be the end in the UFC. He is tough. He is very game. He's a big veteran. But I just think that he's catching Brad Tavares at a bad time right now. So I'm going to go with Brad Tavares. I think he can put the hands on him to knock him out, but I just don't think he will. So I'm going to go Brad Tavares. I'm going to go with another decision there. So Tavares, but via unanimous decision there. Flyweight division with John Moraga and Magomed Bibulatov. Very, very impressed with what I see in Magomed Bibulatov. I think he's got the all-around skill set to really put himself up the top of that division and potentially challenge Demetrious Johnson within the next 18 months. I firmly believe that. Wicked wrestling, really solid striking, stunning spinning attacks. I think the guy's really got it all, and he can put it all together very well too. So John Moraga is coming off that win over Ashkan Mokhtarian down in there in Australia and New Zealand, I think it was. Mokhtarian is not a good fighter. I mean, really, really is not a good fighter. But when you look at before that, he lost to Sergio Pettis, Mateus Nicolau. So he's losing to decent fighters. Mokhtarian is not a good fighter. What I think he has to try and do here is try and keep his back off the fence and try and establish the centre of the octagon if he can. I thought his striking looked okay against Sergio. I thought he wasn't technical enough. You have to be very technical to compete with someone like Sergio. Like Brandon Moreno was the same. He wasn't enough technical enough to compete with Sergio. And I think that's what you have to do in that certain fight. He had his back against the fence a little bit too much in that one there. If that happens in this fight, Bibulatov is going to rush in. He's probably going to take him down. Now he has to be careful with chokes and so on with Moraga, because he has caught people with chokes in the past. I just think that Bibulatov is the next coming of contender in that division. I think wherever the fight goes, he's going to have a definitive advantage, and I think he will use it. Potentially see a finish if he could get him on the ground and get an advantageous position, but has to be Bibulatov. I think it'll be it could be a 30-27, a 30-26 for Bibulatov here, but the pick's going to be Magomed via decision. Moving on to the heavyweight division, Walt Harris against Mark Godbeer. I just think this is a bad matchup for Mark Godbeer. I think that Walt Harris is too athletic, he's too fast, and he's too strong. I think on the feet, if Godbeer was to get off early and catch Walt with something, then it might change the way the fight was going to go. But I just think that Walt Harris has got so many advantages in this fight. As I said before, very athletic, very long. I don't think he's a overly great fighter. It's Walt Harris. I think the people that he's faced are not high level in the slightest. They're not great in the slightest. I mean, he's won his last two fights over Chase Sherman, who I still don't rate too highly, and Cyril Aska, who I really don't think he's with the UFC anymore. Lost to Soa Palele, Shamil Abdurrahimov, who's they're not great fighters. So, but Mark Godbeer, in all honesty, he's solid. But that's pretty much it. Coming off that win over Daniel Spitz, what can you really say? He just kind of did enough in that one. Spitz came in short notice and kind of faded very, very quickly in that fight, and Godbeer just kind of picked and prodded at that fight and won via decision. I just like Walt Harris in this one. I think he's going to catch Godbeer with a shot and could easily put him down. And I think he can use takedowns, put him against the cage, rough him up a little bit. Very confident in this one. I was going to go first round, but I think they're going to feel each other out a little bit in that first round, and then once it gets to the second, I think that he will know that he has the advantage. Wherever the fight goes, he has the power, he has probably the better striking. So that's where I see that fight kind of taking place. I think he catches Mark with a shot, he goes down, he follows up with some nasty ground and pound for the finish there in round number 2 for Walt Harris. Moving on to the prelims, where Gonzalez against Poliana Botelho. I quite like this Botelho chick. I've actually been watching her for the last probably year and a half, and I've been telling some guys that I speak to on Twitter about her, because I do watch a little bit of the Brazilian kind of regional circuit, your XFC, your Jungle Fights, Shuto, so on. And you did see this girl, she's got like a highlight reel spinning back kick KO over Karina Rodriguez, I think it was, and it was a pretty nice finish. But what I like about her is that she's got that little berserker mode where she can come in and she can throw hands a little bit, but she's also got that side where she can fight at a distance and fight very effectively at a distance as well. But she has that tendency to be aggressive too. So I think she's got a 5-1 record with her only loss to Viviana Pereira, who is a UFC fighter, and that's not a bad loss to having your young career. You're going to learn something from that. Viviana's went on and she's did very well for herself in the UFC and won fights, but she has 5 wins, 5 finishes. As I say, I think she's a pretty decent fighter. I think I've been thinking about the odds in this fight a little bit. She could potentially be the underdog in this one. I think that she's got a very good chance of winning this fight. Gonzalez, on the other hand, I was pretty impressed with her at UFC 209, 210 against Calvillo. Calvillo, still very young, very green, was really getting picked apart by Calvillo, and Calvillo's not the greatest striker. She's coming on, don't get me wrong, she's doing enough. But eventually, once the fight hit the ground, you've seen where Calvillo is very, very strong. Now, Gonzalez, to her credit, if you watch some of the videos out there, she's pretty decent on the ground. You can usually hold her own. But I think she's going to get backed up in this fight. I think that Poliana's going to come out very, very quickly, wanting to throw hands, and I think she's going to back Gonzalez up a little bit. And I can see Botelho just being the cleaner striker and getting those shots off and accumulating points on Gonzalez. I'm just trying to think where Pel really wins this fight. Maybe her striking's got better since her first fight in the UFC, and she shows that off a little bit more here. Interesting to see if it goes to the ground who has the advantage. I tend to lean towards Gonzalez, but considering how much I've seen of Botelho, it's maybe a null point because she could be very good down there. We just don't see it. I think I'm going to go with Poliana Botelho, the newcomer here, to win this one. Originally, literally the last hour, I was going to go with Gonzalez. I thought she could grind it out, be a little bit more experienced, fought the better girls. But these girls that are coming out of Brazil are really, really decent kind of fighters, young fighters coming through. So I'm going to pick Poliana Botelho via 29-28 decision. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that fight. Just because the newcomers pretty much to the UFC and see where they're at and where they could go potentially. But Botelho via decision is the pick there. Bobby Green against Lando Vannata is up next. I want to be confident in Lando Vannata here, but I'm not as much as I thought I would be when I heard that. I can't remember the opponent who pulled out of this fight, but when Bobby Green stepped up, I actually was like, I like that fight for Lando Vannata. I think he could really put a beating on Bobby Green. Bobby Green's on a little bit of a slide of a minute, 3 losses, 2 decent guys albeit, but there's always so much shit with Bobby Green, family wise, in his home life. So it's really hard to take a guy who mentally probably isn't all there. When he puts it all together, he's a very fun, very dangerous fighter, but we haven't seen that in a while. He's been injured. and he just hasn't shown these fights recently, albeit against better opposition, like I said before. Vannata's coming off that loss to David Teymur. That was a great fight. I really enjoyed that fight. Teymur showed up. Teymur put a little bit of a beat down on Lando Vannata and kind of silenced the critics after that big knockout that he had of John McDessie. That was a fight that I picked Lando, but as the fight was going through, I really liked David Teymur. I thought he was fast and could put really vicious combinations together, and it showed in that fight. I think he can catch Bobby Green here late in the fight if he still has the gas tank and enough power in his tank to really keep going in this one. I think Bobby throws a little bit over eager sometimes and he leaves himself open. With someone like Vannata who can get kicks up really fast, that could be a bad thing. But initially I thought it was going to be a bit of a landslide for Lando Vannata, but I think it is a little bit closer. But I do think he is the better fighter at this point and probably more hungry for the win here. But it's that old case again with Bobby Green, back against the wall, needs a win, could turn up here, completely shock the world. Maybe not shock the world, but shock a lot of people here. I just like Vannata. I just like the matchup for him. I think eventually Green's going to wear himself down a little bit and Vannata can catch him. So I'm going to go an early third round TKO for Lando Vannata. This is probably the fight on the card I'm kind of least looking forward to, in all honesty. Or even some of the UFC Fight Pass prelims I'm looking forward to more than this. Will Brooks against Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz is a guy I've just never really liked. I just think that he's a solid veteran, no doubt about it, been around the UFC for a long time. But some of his rants on social media are just a little bit cheesy and a little bit cringy. As a fighter, as I say, very, very tough, very gritty. But it's not like he's beaten great fighters. I mean, Michael McBride, he took some licks in that fight as well. In there, lost to Islam Makhachev, who tough when he puts it all together, is a really tough guy from Russia. But wins over Danny Castillo, who pretty much was on his way out. Michael McBride, who he did get the TKO finish there. Fights I'm not overly impressed with, if I'm being honest. Saying that, Will Brooks is really flattered to deceive since he came into the UFC from Bellator. Has not looked good. Lost his last two fights to Charles Oliveira and Alex Cowboy Oliveira, getting stopped as well. So this is the big fight for this guy. Coming in here, was talking all that jazz, coming over from Bellator, saying he was the best and saying he's this and he's saying that. And he's came in and really he beat, was it Ross Pearson? I think that fight was put together at fairly short notice, but then he's lost his last two. So if he loses this one, 1-3, probably getting a decent paycheck in the UFC. Wouldn't surprise me if I seen Will Brooks get cut, which is something honestly I would never have seen, because I thought he's got enough in there to win fights in the UFC. But he loses to Nick Lentz, then you might not be sticking around in the UFC. So I think he's better. I think he's going to grind out one of the better grinders in the sport in Nick Lentz. I just think that he can put more together a little bit better than what Nick Lentz can, and I do think he has the better gas tank to go 3 hard rounds as well. So I'm going to go decision win for Will Brooks, but really a fight I'm not looking forward to. Now, this next fight is actually the fight I am really looking forward to, probably the most in the whole entire card. With the Fire Kid, Tom Duquesnoy against Cody Stamann. This is such a good matchup. Sean Shelby, McMaynard, thumbs up. I love seeing fights like this. Two young, promising fighters being matched together early on in the UFC career. Let's see what you're made of. And I'll be honest with you, for the last few weeks, you ask some of the guys I speak to quite regularly on Twitter, I was pretty confident in Cody Stamann. This week I started watching the Duquesnoy fights again. I've been watching them for the last 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks since I knew this fight was coming up. I love watching the Duquesnoy fights. They're violent, they're always action-packed, they're fun-filled, but there is definitely holes there that I think Cody Stamann can take advantage here against the Duquesnoy. Let's start with Tom Duquesnoy's UFC debut. wasn't his best performance. Kind of flattered to deceive a little bit, coming in there with all the hype. Got dropped by Pat Williams. Didn't really phase him too much. Got back to his feet. Got taken down. Got back to his feet very quickly there as well. But you can see where the guy shines. He's got a lot of vicious strikes. He's got elbows from everywhere. If he's in the clinch, he will elbow you. If he's got you against the cage, he will elbow you. If he's got that little bit of space, he will throw a 1-2 and then fly in with a step-in elbow. His elbows are one of his best tools that he's got, and he throws them a lot. He throws them vicious, but he is extremely hittable, and that's something at Jackson Winklejohn's that he has to be working on that, because he will not. He is definitely, in my opinion, a top 5 guy in that division, but you need to improve big time if you want to get in there. I think that I should have really said he's got the potential to be in that top 5. I do believe, I really do think he can get in there, but he has to prove it, and he has to really show it. Just such a good fight. Cody Stamann, I mean, he had a UFC fight that got put together extremely quickly. I think it was against Terry and Weir. It was at 145. This fight is saying it's at featherweight. I don't believe it is. I think it's at bantamweight, which kind of threw me off a little bit, because I thought this was a bantamweight bout. I do think it's a bantamweight bout, but we'll see. It's saying featherweight, what I'm looking on right now, but what I like from Cody Stamann in his first fight, well-rounded, extremely well-rounded, great wrestling, great boxing, nice timing. That's the thing that I really liked with him in this one, in that fight against Terry and Weir. When Terry and Weir would lead in off his left foot, and would throw something, the timing was absolutely perfect for Stamann to take this guy down, and he did it on numerous occasions in that fight against Terry and Weir. I see Cody starting off very well. I actually see him winning the first round. Then I see Tom coming into towards the later rounds and making this fight very close. I can see a potential finish for Tom Duquesnoy, maybe late second into your third round with vicious elbows. If he can push Stamann against the cage, I think he can unload on him, and I think he can really hurt him there. In open ground, I think that Stamann's dangerous. I think he will get takedowns in this fight, but I do see him getting dinged up in this fight a lot as well. So I've struggled with this one, because I am such a fan of Tom Duquesnoy, but I'm actually a really big fan of Cody Stamann. You go back and watch his fights, he's a really solid guy to come into the UFC that I've known about for a long time. I seen something today where he came out and said that Tom Duquesnoy would not be as hyped if he was to fight out of, say, Canada or America. Central America is what he was saying. I don't believe that. I think he's beat good guys. Some fights have been closer than others, but I do think he has fought and beat good guys, in all honesty. He's fought who's been put in front of him, and it's been Europe's best. Now it's time to show if he can beat these American guys with high-level wrestling, who have really good hands and can put all the facets together. I'm going to go Tom Duquesnoy. I'm going to go a very, very close 29-28 decision for the Fire Kid. But interesting, I want to see what the line says. I know it opened -115 apiece on Sports Interaction and over there in the States. We have no odds over here yet in the UK. But if the odds are close, I will make a bet on one of those guys. On Tom Duquesnoy, if the odds are close, I should say. Stamann, if he's a heavy underdog, I think it's a good play, because I do think he will win rounds, and I think he could win. There's going to be times in this fight where he is potentially dominating the fight. I just think Tom's going to ding him up a little bit. Once he gets his feet and he knows what he's up to and what he's doing, I think he can hurt Cody. Potentially put him away. I do think a finish could happen here. But I see it going the full 3 rounds, and I see Tom Duquesnoy winning rounds 2 and 3 to win a 29-20 decision. But I expect it to be very, very close. Love the fight though. Favourite fight on the card, along with the main event. Moving on to the main card, we won't have 4 fights. I fully expect a fight to be moved up in here. If I was to pick, I'd pick Bibulatov to move up into there. But there's also talk of Kalinda Faria, who's supposed to fight Angela KGB Lee, of still fighting this card. So if a fight gets put together in this card, I will put that in the drop down box. But I expect a fight to move up to the main card. But in the meantime, starting off the main card with Beneil Dariush against Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham is very, very solid professional, very well rounded in many aspects of the game. Haven't seen him in over a year, but when the fight that I seen with my own two eyes against Ross Pearson, he really impressed me. Again, his timing, when Ross would get too aggressive on the feet, he would step in with beautiful, quick, double leg takedowns, take him down, and just really beat Ross Pearson up down there. Joe Lozon, very dominant. The fight with Rick Glenn was violent. There was a lot of violence in that fight. But he is a very tough fighter to face. He only loses to the best guys. I mean, Edson Barboza, Donald Cerrone, Rafael dos Anjos. So he only loses to really solid guys. And he's been in the UFC for, it must be 8-9 years now. So he's been around a hell of a long time. And yeah, I just think with this matchup, I think that Dariush, he's coming off a life-changing knockout against Edson Barboza. He ate a heavy, heavy knee in that one. But in that fight, I think he was having spots where he was winning that fight fairly. I think it was close, but I was edging Beneil Dariush in that fight. And then he ate that vicious flying knee. Puts it together really well. What I like about Beneil Dariush, that's one of the things I really like. Very solid on the ground. Sometimes makes mental mistakes. He did it against Michael Chiesa, which kind of showed a little bit. He was winning that fight convincingly. Made the tiniest mistake, got tapped out. But he has vicious leg kicks, really heavy thudding leg kicks, a really nice left hand. He is one of the guys I like watching solid all-around professionals who are just very, very solid. Dunham's another guy. You actually go back and watch his fights and you can see the progression of his skill set, get more confident with it and being a decent fighter. I just think that Dariush is going to be the quick on the feet here. He's going to get off first. I think Dunham can make it close, but I think over the whole 15 minutes of the fight, I think that Dariush could win the fight, most definitely. He is who I'm going to pick in this one. Interesting if it goes to the ground, because I think he could submit Evan Dunham personally. I think if he hurts him with a shot, puts him down and submit. Actually, I'm going to go for a finish. I was going to go for a decision, but I'm going to go a late second round submission for Beneil Dariush and get himself back on the win streak and looking for another top class opponent in that division. Moving on to the heavyweight division with Fabricio Werdum against Derrick the Black Beast Lewis. And I'll be honest with you in this one, I've been feeling Derrick Lewis in this, and I don't know why, because really all signs should point to Fabricio Werdum, because he is the better overall fighter. Let's not kind of kid ourselves there. Derrick Lewis is fairly average, but he has a couple of things in his weapon, like his repertoire, which could really hurt Werdum. Massive power. If this fight does hit the ground with Lewis somehow being on top, he has absolutely smashing ground and pound, and it only takes one or two shots and you're out and you're getting woken up looking at the lights, and it's all over. Werdum, I really like his striking. That he's kind of came along since he came back to the UFC. Flying knee, Mark Hunt, big strikes against Travis Brown in his fight. But the thing that worries me with Fabricio is that he's kind of losing it a little bit mentally, I think. That fight with Stipe kind of showed that, got overzealous, run forward, and ate that shot and got put to sleep. The fight with Alistair Overeem, I think he won that fight against Overeem. I scored it just 29-28 for Werdum, but in all honesty, it was close. Could have went either way. I scored it for Werdum. Interesting to see what he does in this fight here, because on the feet, I think he can win the exchanges, but he just can't afford to be he can't afford to be caught with something. I am going to pick Fabricio Werdum, but I'm not confident. I really actually think that Derrick Lewis has a chance here, but the way I'm kind of thinking about it is, should I pick Derrick Lewis? This is going to be a not confident pick in the slightest. Either way that I go. But I'm going to go with my initial play. I'm going to go with Fabricio Werdum. Derrick Lewis sounds really appealing to me, though. I don't know why. Just because I think that Werdum, he could potentially be on the road down, maybe fading a little bit. And Lewis is the guy who can crack. And if he gets the opportunity to land some hands on you, you could be in trouble. But I'm going to go for Fabricio Werdum. I'm going to pick him via decision. I probably see this being a kind of slow-paced fight. Not much kind of going on. Striking at a distance. With Lewis trying to get off that big shot and just not getting it off. So I'm going to go 30-27 for Fabricio Werdum. But as I say, I'm really not confident in that fight in the slightest, because I do think that Derrick Lewis has a legit chance of winning that fight with the power that he does obtain. But that's going to be the pick. Demetrious Johnson against Ray Borg. Spoke about this last month at UFC 215. Let's talk about Ray Borg. I'll go over it very, very quickly. He's all around a very good fighter, a really good striker, very good on the ground, an extremely good scrambler. Could potentially get DJ in one of those scrambles. But I didn't like what happened with UFC 215, and then he's went and sacked his nutritionist. Says he's going to do it himself now. We've seen in the past he's missed weight in the past. So it's really interesting. I just think that, this is a fight for history for DJ. That if he wins this one, he's got the most defences up there with Anderson Silva. I just think anywhere this fight goes, Demetrious is just your solid all-around professional in every facet. There's not a facet of his game that you can look at and see anybody really having a definitive advantage over him. I don't see it in that division. I really don't. I think every facet, and he can go into other people's strongest facets like he did in the Wilson Hayes fight and beat guys at their own game. And that's next level shit, if I'm being honest with you. If you can go and beat those other guys with their strongest skill set, that's saying something. I just think that Ray Borg, I actually think this fight's a little bit too early for him. He's 24 years old, but he's won a couple of fights, and that's all you have to do in that flyweight division. But I think in a few years' time, if he's still around there, we're going to see the best of this guy, and could potentially be a flyweight champion of the future. But Demetrious Johnson has to be the pick there. I see him late on this fight stopping Ray Borg. I think he's going to beat him, be the faster guy in the feet, avoid the scrambles, avoid the clinches of Ray Borg, and then once he works him out, I think he's going to find a way to stop him. I can see this hitting the mat at some point with DJ potentially getting his back. So I'm going to go a rear naked choke victory for Demetrious Johnson. I'm going to go round number 4 and him to equal the record, if not beat it. I can't remember what it is now, but and be one of the best guys that has ever been in the sport, in my opinion. But DJ round 4 submission is the pick there. And the main event of the night, with Tony El Cucuy Ferguson against the Motown phenom Kevin Lee. So, first thing I want to speak about this fight, I think that there is so many people out there really showing disrespect for Kevin Lee by not giving him a chance. There is so many people out there. I've put a few things out on Twitter, and people literally think that Tony Ferguson is going to walk over this guy. Now, I'll put my hand up, that could very well happen. He could get this guy in the first round. We've seen him be hurt in the past against guys who are not strikers. Leo Santos, he got hit clean in the chin and went down in the first round. That's a bit of a red flag. But what have we seen since then? Progression in every facet, and just looking dominant in fights as well, and looking against, and people are saying the level of opposition. he's still beating these guys and stopping these guys. Chiesa is a tough guy. Masaran Duba down in Brazil, tough guy. You have to take your licks against that guy, and once you have the opportunity to finish him, you take it. This guy, what I like with Kevin is he's going to different parts of the world and beating guys. Like he beat Mustafayev in Northern Ireland last year. Mustafayev's not an easy guy to face. Going to Brazil and beating Masaran Duba, that's a big feather in your cap in my opinion. I hold that as a big win for anybody going down there and doing that, because that guy is solid everywhere. A veteran of the sport. And then against Michael Chiesa, we've seen that if this guy gets an opportunity to get your back and gets you down on the ground, he can control you, and he has a wicked body triangle. If he gets you in that, I think you're completely goosed. I don't think you can get out or something like that. And I do think that Tony Ferguson gives you opportunities to get him in positions where you can take advantage of, and I think that Kevin Lee could take advantages. Now, Tony Ferguson, let's talk about this guy. This guy's a machine, an absolute machine. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of him personally, but his fighting style is incredible, and it's so the way he drops his shoulders, the way he rolls with his punches, the way his head movement, his movement with his feet, switching stances, just mixing it up and making the fight so different from many other fighters, just not being the same. He's just so unorthodox and so creative as well, and just difficult to game plan for, because you don't know what's going to come with this guy. And I do enjoy watching him fight, I must admit, but I think that people are disrespecting Kevin Lee in this spot here. Tony Ferguson, I mean, we haven't seen him since November last year, and he had it, when you watch the fight, he dominated parts of that fight, but he still lost 2 rounds pretty clearly, albeit against a former champion in Rafael dos Anjos. But he got caught in that fight with Lando Vannata. He got caught in that fight with Edson Barboza. So there is going to be opportunities for Kevin Lee here if he can fight smart and take advantage of those opportunities. Now, I'm going to pick Kevin Lee. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm going to say we've got I see the progression this guy's making. I think he's been a little bit underestimated by some of the fans I see out there on social media. Now, they've got every right to really like Tony Ferguson, because he is this could easily finish in the first round. He could catch Kevin Lee and put him to sleep. I just don't see it happening. I think that Kevin Lee is a guy who, if you give him the opportunity, he will make you pay for it. And I think that Tony Ferguson, if he doesn't fight clean and he leaves some opportunities out there, Kevin Lee is going to catch him. I'm going to pick him via submission. I'm going to go a round 2 submission for Kevin Lee. I think eventually, if it hits the ground, I think that Kevin's going to find a way to stop this fight. Now, this is I've already bet this one as well. I'll put that out there. I put a unit on. I put 50. Was it 50? I put on 50 on him at plus 200. I put 100 on him, sorry, at plus 200. That's what it was. Just thinking that, because I thought I split it up into 2 bets, but I didn't. So I put a bet on him at plus 200. I think the value I got for that was there to take the shot against Tony Ferguson. But I'm not being stupid here by saying that I think, I'm very confident he's going to come out here and finish Tony Ferguson. I just think that he's going to find an opportunity to take advantage of the opportunities given to him by Tony Ferguson and make the opportunity stick and get the finish. I'm just more confident picking Kevin Lee in this one here. Tony Ferguson is a guy who he's just solid. He's so fun to watch. But I just think there's opportunities there to be taken advantage of, and I think Kevin Lee's going to do it. So a bit of a ballsy pick in my one. I'll probably get some shit from some guys on YouTube here because I might be one of the only ones picking Kevin Lee in this spot. But I just feel confident in the pick. I feel confident in the matchup. I think Kevin has come along a long way since that loss to Leonardo Santos, and he is facing the best opponent he has faced. Let's make no doubt about it. he's facing the best guy he's ever fought. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to pick Kevin Lee, and yeah, I just think he's going to take advantage of an opportunity. So that's my picks there for UFC 216. Tell me what you think about my picks. Tell me if you think I'm wrong on the Kevin Lee picks. I'm sure some people are going to say I'm wrong, and I could be, but I'm going to take the shot on the young underdog who's shown me a lot in his recent fights. And yeah, I'm taking the shot. Tell me what you think of my picks. Let me know your picks. I always like to know your picks and have a read and see what your guys' reads are in fights. So yeah, that's me for this fight card. We've got another 2-week break, which kind of sucks. But then we're back into a real run of really, really, really good cards coming forward. I think after this one we are, let's see, where are we? Cerrone versus Tilburg in Poland. Decent main event over here in Europe. And then we're going on to Machida Brunson, which is a great card over there in Brazil. So that's my picks. You can come follow me at Will Martin MMA on Twitter. The podcast MMA Huddle, you can come and follow us on there. Shout out to all the good guys who make prediction videos on here. Shout out to all the DraftKings guys out there who I'm really having a fun time talking fights and strategies for fights on there. So until next time, take care, enjoy UFC 216 when it comes around next weekend, next Saturday night, round about this time the pay-per-view will be kicking off. And until then, stay safe, enjoy the fights, and take care.